Have you ever noticed how there's a kind of anger that feels noble, almost sacred? That indignation that arises when you see injustice, when someone treats you badly, when the world seems to be working completely wrong. It's an anger that doesn't shame you because it feels justified, even virtuous. You're not being violent or irrational. You're standing up for what's right. But there's something Eastern spiritual masters discovered millennia ago that our modern culture refuses to accept. This righteous anger may be exactly what's preventing you from finding the inner peace you so desperately seek. Not because you should accept injustice or become passive, but because there's a vast difference between conscious action and emotional reaction. And this difference is the line between spiritual freedom and imprisonment disguised as virtue. Gurdjieff, the Armenian master who revolutionized our understanding of human consciousness, said that the greatest trap on the spiritual path isn't the obvious vices or defects we can see. It's emotional self-justification, our infinite capacity to turn poison into medicine when that poison gives us a sense of power. Welcome to Axiom Sage, where we explore the most uncomfortable truths about spiritual growth. Today you'll discover why your righteous anger may be the last link holding you back in patterns of suffering you don't even realize you choose to repeat every day. If you've come this far seeking spirituality, you probably already carry some deep wounds. Maybe they're childhood wounds, parents who never validated you, who were absent when you needed them most, who made you feel like you were never enough. Maybe they're relationship wounds, partners who betrayed you, friends who abandoned you in difficult times, people you trusted who used your vulnerability against you. Or maybe they're wounds from the world, a system that seems to reward dishonesty, a society that values appearance over substance, a toxic work environment where you have to pretend to be someone you're not just to survive. These pains are real. They matter. And when you feel angry about them, that anger feels not only understandable but necessary. Alan Watts used to call this theatrical spirituality. When we use our intense emotions as proof of our depth, our authenticity, our connection to something greater. Righteous anger gives us a role in life's drama. We are the heroes defending the truth against the darkness of others' ignorance. But there's something you need to know about this dynamic, something that may be silently sabotaging your entire quest for inner peace. And it has to do with a disturbing discovery Gurdjieff made about human nature. We cling to our suffering not because it hurts us, but precisely because it gives us a clear identity in a confusing world. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to recognize when your righteous anger has turned into a gilded prison, and how you can maintain your moral integrity without becoming emotionally intoxicated. But first, I need to tell you why everything our culture teaches about channeling anger is fundamentally wrong. There's a story Gurdjieff told about a man who discovered his wife was having an affair. His anger was completely justified. He had been betrayed, humiliated, and his trust had been broken. Anyone would agree he had every right to be furious. He spent months nursing this anger. He talked to friends about the injustice, mentally replayed every detail of the betrayal, and imagined confrontations where he would finally come clean. The anger seemed to be bringing justice to his suffering, validating his pain, keeping alive the memory of right and wrong. But Gurdjieff observed something fascinating. The more a man clung to his righteous anger, the more he became exactly like the thing he criticized. He became a liar, lying to himself about his own motives. He became manipulative, using the story of betrayal to garner sympathy and attention. He became selfish, unable to see any perspective beyond his own pain. Anger had begun as a legitimate response to injustice, but it had become an identity. He was no longer married to a person who had betrayed him. He was married to his own indignation. And this marriage was far more toxic than the original. This goes against everything our culture teaches us about processing emotions, doesn't it? We're taught that expressing anger is healthy, that repressing feelings is harmful, that authentic people show their emotions unfiltered. And there's truth to this when it comes to acknowledging and validating our feelings. But there's a crucial difference between feeling anger and identifying with it. Modern neuroscience reveals something disturbing about chronic anger. It physically alters the brain's structure. People who harbor anger for prolonged periods develop neural patterns that make irritation their default mental state. The brain literally rewires itself to seek out reasons to be outraged. You're no longer reacting to real injustices. You're addicted to the neurological chemistry of outrage. But here's the question that could change everything. What if righteous anger is exactly what's preventing you from seeing real solutions to the problems that anger you? Gurdjieff identified 3 signs that your righteous anger has become the greatest obstacle to your spiritual growth. Recognizing these signs can be the first step toward regaining your inner freedom. The first sign is a compulsive need to be right. When you can no longer listen to different perspectives without feeling like your identity is being attacked, when every conversation becomes a battle where you need to prove your point, you're no longer defending the truth. You're defending your wounded ego disguised as moral conviction. The second sign is the inability to feel genuine compassion for those who hurt you. I'm not talking about forced forgiveness or accepting unacceptable behavior. I'm talking about the ability to see that people who hurt others are hurting themselves. When your anger is so intense that you can't even consider this possibility, you've lost touch with your own humanity. The third sign is the most subtle and most devastating. You've begun to find secret pleasure in your indignation. There's an addictive satisfaction in feeling morally superior, in having a clear narrative about who the villains are and who the victims are. This satisfaction is exactly what Gurdjieff called ego food. It keeps you in a dream state where you're always the misunderstood hero. Quick practice for you to try right now. Think of someone or a situation that constantly irritates you. Now, for just 30 seconds, try to imagine what your life would be like if you never thought about that person or situation again. Don't force yourself to forgive or accept. Just imagine the complete absence of that topic from your mind. Most people feel something disturbing, a kind of emptiness, as if they've lost an important part of themselves. This reveals that anger isn't just a response to others. It's become a source of identity and even mental entertainment. If you felt this emptiness while doing the exercise, subscribe to the channel, because in the next few minutes you will discover how to transform this wasted energy into fuel for a truly free life. In Buddhist tradition, there is a tale about a monk who was publicly insulted by an angry merchant. Everyone expected the monk to defend himself, or at least express indignation at the disrespect. But the monk simply smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse, whose gift does it get?" The merchant was confused. "Whoever offered it to you, obviously." The monk nodded. "You offered me anger and insults. I don't accept them. Who do they get?" This story illustrates a principle Gurdjieff developed more systematically. You always have a choice about what you accept into your consciousness. Anger can only exist within you if you give it unconscious consent. And this consent often comes disguised as moral righteousness. Gurdjieff observed that spiritually immature people confuse emotional intensity with spiritual depth. They believe that feeling deep anger at injustices is a sign of an awakened soul, of an expanded consciousness. But he discovered exactly the opposite. True spiritual maturity is the ability to see injustices with complete clarity without becoming emotionally intoxicated by them. This doesn't mean becoming apathetic or indifferent. It means developing what Eastern masters call lucid compassion, the ability to act to correct imbalances without identifying with the emotional drama they generate. Modern neuroscience confirms this ancient wisdom in a striking way. Studies show that people in chronic anger have reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for wise decision-making, empathy, and long-term vision. Ironically, the more you hold on to your righteous anger, the less capable you become of creating real, positive change in the world. It's like trying to drive with a fogged-up windshield. You may be heading in the right direction, but your vision is impaired. Chronic anger clouds your ability to perceive nuances, to find creative solutions, to respond rather than just react. Gurdjieff called this psychic sleep, a state where you're technically awake, but your reactions are completely automatic. You're no longer choosing how to respond to situations. You're being controlled by emotional patterns that have crystallized into unconscious habits. But there is a way to awaken from this slumber, and it begins with a question that can be uncomfortable. How much of your sense of self is built on your outrages? Now I'm going to teach you the specific technique Gurdjieff used to help disciples free themselves from the prison of righteous anger. He called it the work of the conscious actor, learning to act out anger when necessary without identifying with it. When you feel anger rising, whether over a personal injustice, frustration at work, or indignation at the state of the world, apply the 3 steps of conscious transmutation. First step: pause and name what's happening. Instead of saying, "I'm angry," say, "The anger is present." This subtle shift in language reconnects you with the fact that you are the observer of the anger, not the anger itself. You are the space where the emotion appears, not the emotion that's appearing. Step 2. Investigate the real source of your anger. Gurdjieff discovered that 90% of our anger isn't about what happened, but about what it means for our self-image. Ask yourself, am I angry at the situation, or am I angry about feeling powerless? Am I defending a value, or am I defending my wounded ego? Third step: consciously choose how to respond. This doesn't mean repressing anger or pretending it doesn't exist. It means using the energy of anger as fuel for conscious action rather than automatic reaction. Lao Tzu taught that true power lies in responding to chaos with clarity, not with more chaos. Specific practice for everyday situations. When someone deeply irritates you, before speaking or acting, count to 10 in your head. But don't count to control yourself. Count to create space between the stimulus and your response. In that space, ask yourself, how would a truly free person react to this? The difference between a spiritually mature person and a reactive person isn't that the former never feels anger. It's that they aren't ruled by anger. They use the energy of emotion without being used by it. If you're applying this right now, comment "transforming" to let me know you're experiencing this inner freedom. And subscribe to the channel, because in the next few minutes you'll discover why avoiding inner silence is exactly what keeps you stuck in cycles of chronic anger. Here's the revelation that was promised all along. Your righteous anger isn't protecting your values, it's protecting your identification with the victim role. And as long as you cling to that role, even if it's the role of a virtuous victim, you can't experience true spiritual freedom. Gurdjieff discovered something revolutionary. We don't just cling to the good things in life. We especially cling to our pain when it gives us a clear sense of identity. Righteous anger is particularly addictive because it combines pain with moral superiority. You feel bad, but you feel bad for the right reasons. The practical synthesis is transformative. First, recognize that you can defend your values without emotionally identifying with their defense. Second, replace "they made me feel" with "I choose how I feel about what they did." Third, use each episode of anger as a reminder to explore where you are still seeking external validation for your sense of self-worth. When you apply this consistently, something extraordinary happens. You don't lose your ability to recognize injustices or your motivation to act against them. You just lose the need to suffer while doing so. And discovering that you can fight for what's right without becoming bitter is one of the most profound freedoms there is. The spiritual harmony you seek isn't about living in a world free from injustice. It's about not allowing the world's injustices to destroy the peace you're capable of cultivating within. Most people will hear this teaching and think I'm suggesting they become passive in the face of injustice, that they accept being trampled on, that they give up fighting for what they believe in. They don't understand that there's a radical difference between conscious action and compulsive emotional reaction. Shantideva, the Buddhist master, taught that patience is not weakness. It is the greatest weapon against the internal enemies that prevent us from acting wisely. When you are no longer controlled by anger, you become much more effective in creating real change in the world, because your actions are born of clarity, not poison. You have a choice now. You can continue to feed your righteous anger, finding more and more reasons to be indignant, building an identity on top of your wounds. Or you can begin the real work of freeing your soul from the golden chains of emotional self-justification. Gurdjieff said that you are not free as long as you justify your negative emotions. And righteous anger is the easiest negative emotion to justify. Freeing yourself from it isn't betraying your values. It's discovering that you are much greater than any role life circumstances have tried to impose on you. If this video revealed something you recognize in yourself, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share it with someone who might need to hear this uncomfortable truth, and comment on your biggest insight today. Remember, true spiritual harmony is not the absence of external conflict. It is the presence of inner peace, even when the world is in chaos. And this peace is yours by right, not because you have managed to control circumstances, but because you have learned not to be controlled by them.